Hello. All right, you guys. We are going to give it a few minutes to let people join the meeting. And in the meantime, I'll try to pass the time and chat with you if anybody wants to hop on and introduce themselves or say hi or ask any questions. This is your time to do that. And we're just going to continue accepting people as they come into the room. And in the next 3 to 4 to 5 minutes, we'll get started with our presentation. I'm still getting people signing up right now. I wonder if they're getting the Zoom link. Let's see what else we can do here. All right. You guys, here's a chat window in the Zoom. If you are watching from your phone or you're watching from your laptop or tablet, you should be able to have the chat window open. If you want to just quickly pop in the chat and say hello and say that, or let me know that you are listening and that you are here with me and that you all hear me, that would be awesome. You can do it privately. You can do it in the chat.
Hi, Mila, this is Subdev.
Hi. There you go. That's the feedback.
Hi.
I want to know that you guys can hear me. That's good. Fantastic.
Yeah, we are not keeping ourselves muted and we are we're able to hear each other. That's nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys there. So people are starting to slowly pull up. We've got a ton of signups. So I just want to make sure I don't start before just a bunch of people join. And I'm a one-man team today, so I'm accepting new participants as I'm talking to you as well. So, but it's great to hear some of your voices, and it's great to see that people are saying hello. I feel like I'm not talking to myself, which is great. And this is an exciting topic for me, and I'm sure for all of you guys as well. You know, in the market that we're in right now, if any of you are, or any of your friends are participating in purchasing a property right now, you're probably aware of the multiple offer situations that are happening across the board. So we are foreseeing that this aggressive market is here to stay. And we do think pre-construction and assignment sales are going to be the way to go this year if you're a buyer trying to secure a place. So, hi Nadine, how are you? I don't see you, but I know who you are. I know we spoke many, many times, so it's really nice to see you here. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to share all the information with you guys. So we've got a few people in here. I know more people are going to be pulling up as we go along, but I'll get started slowly and just start introducing what we're going to cover today. And we'll take it from there. Okay. What do I open here for you here? We are. All right, there we go. And I see Ara joined us today, who is my real estate dad and mentor.
Hey, real estate daughter, how are you?
Good, how are you? I have the confidential window here for Viewpoint Condos and Pickering because I would love to show everybody in here how the whole process actually works once they submit the reservation forms, maybe later today. So if you're okay with it, I will show it to them at some point today. Is that allowed?
That's cool. Yep, I'm just parking my car right now, and I'll join you officially in like 5 minutes. But go share it.
Perfect. I love it. Okay, awesome, guys. So we will look at the insights of what the whole process looks like of buying a pre-construction condo for you as an end user or an investor. And this is, I think, super, super interesting to see for most people. So I'm going to share the presentation. I'll start here. And here we go. All righty. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about pre-construction as a whole. So we're going to start from the very basic and we're going to get to some pretty advanced concepts in pre-construction. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that after you guys stay with us for this hour and learn this information, you're going to know more than majority of the people out there about pre-construction, because there's a lot of confusion around this topic. And more than that, I'll say you'll probably know more than like 90% of realtors out there as well. Because like I said, it's an elusive subject a little bit. It's a very much connection-based type of an industry as well. And it's not, it's a very different industry from resale purchasing, right? So like purchasing existing condos or houses, pre-construction is a totally different beast. So it's very, very interesting to learn. So we're going to talk about what it is, how it works, like just a summary of what happens from A to Z, pros and cons of pre-construction. Right away, a waiver here or a disclaimer: pre-construction is not for everybody. Deposit structure, so the way that you pay the money down, what is the cooling off period and why you should care. Terry on warranty, so warranty on pre-construction or new builds. The fact that pre-construction has 2 closing dates. If you guys have any experience with buying property, there's only 1 closing date. In pre-construction, that's not the case. Something called occupancy fees. What are the closing costs in pre-construction? We'll talk about what the common myths are, and that I come across as a realtor quite a bit with pre-construction buyers and prospects who are interested in it. We'll talk a little bit about reputable builders, and then we'll close the session off with the Q&A. Now, just really quickly, I want to point out here, you guys, I am checking the chat throughout. Ara is going to be here also commenting and chatting and just chiming in whenever he hears or sees something that's interesting. And I do implore, I ask you guys to ask your questions as they come up. I don't necessarily love leaving all the questions until the end. We're going to definitely have a discussion at the end, depending on how much you guys want to chat. But as I'm explaining information, if something comes up that's interesting or you feel like you need clarification, ask away in the chat and I will try to answer everybody. Okay, let's begin. So, when you are buying pre-construction, you are not necessarily, you're buying the right to buy a property when this property is built. So it's a little bit of a different concept than buying resale. You can't see it, touch it, smell it, see the neighbors, talk to the concierge, or walk around really the building or the amenities. It's a concept. So you're buying into a concept. Okay. And so this leads me nicely into the next point, and this is, how does it work? So I find this very interesting, the whole project or lifespan of what pre-construction looks like. We'll talk specifically about condo buildings here today. There's a lot of that in Toronto and the GTA, but it's very similar for houses and townhouses as well. So before anything happens, there is a meeting by the owner who decides to start the project, an architect and a construction manager, to evaluate whether or not this is even a project and the scope of the project is feasible, if they're going to make money from it, if if they can build what they want to build with the allotted land that they're given, and so on and so forth. So before any of the sales or any of the applications, this is the first step. Now, after that initial meeting of planning, now the developer will go to the city or to the municipality and apply for permits. Okay, permits and approvals can take years. So from the first, if there's a website that's public, it's open to the public, where all of you guys and I, we can all see what the applications are and where they are in the process within the municipality. So if we're talking about Toronto, it's a development application site for Toronto. You can Google it and you can see on the map, there's a bunch of dots and you can press on it and see when they applied for it. And very often the application sits without any resolution for like 3-4 years. So it takes a long time for this whole process to get going. The next phase, and that's the phase that we are specifically interested in, is the sales. So did you know that the developer has to sell out at least 70% of the project before they're granted financing? This is a fun little fact, and also the reason why Toronto pre-construction is sold out before it's built. There's stuff in the States. I know in New York, sometimes they'll build a building, right, a big condo, and it stays vacant. In Toronto, that's not the case. You will not get financing as a developer unless a big portion of the development is already sold out. So now here is how they sell. The developers never release everything at once or dump it out to everybody at once. They will release in phases, okay? And each new phase will be slightly more expensive. As the earlier you get in, basically, the more incentives you get access to. Let me see. Yeah. So the question here is, how do you qualify for VIP or platinum? You specifically don't qualify. You need to work with an agent in order to qualify for platinum or for VIP. So back to what we're talking about here. Friends and family is basically developers and their employees, friends and family release. So they do the first launch completely behind closed doors. It's not accessible to anybody but their friends and family, and they get those first dibs. And even then, you guys, just so you know, the developer doesn't just open their doors and say, hey, here's the entire building, pick whatever you like. They'll give a portion of allocation of availability, and they'll say, here's what you can choose from, go for it. Now, the next release is the one where some realtors and some brokerages will have access to. It's called Platinum and the VIP releases. They are 2 consecutive releases. They are given to realtors who have connections and have a relationship with developer in certain cases and do a lot of business. So it is kind of a connection-based type of a situation, and it's a very small number of realtors that will actually have this allocation. So if Ara is in here, you can prove, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something like 20 realtors, maybe the 20 brokers that will get this access. So it's very, very, again, very small. And when
it's a little bit bigger than that sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends on the development. Like, can you see me? Oh, there I am.
Can I see you? Where are you? And I see you now.
I'm just on my phone right now, so if you can't see me, I can't see myself. So some developments, depends on how big it is, the developer will open their doors to more, to a bigger group of initial agents. There's no substitute for selling a lot for a developer. Like, I could know a developer, but if I haven't really sold enough for them, they're not going to give me and my team any real access. So there are a group of pre-construction agents that sell a lot more than others. Those are the ones that are always part of the first group. Luckily, we're part of that first group most of the time. And then if the building's big enough and they can support a bigger group of agents, then they'll call those other agents that have done like a little bit of business. They know that they can bring great clients. They know that they can really help them out. And they'll bring those agents in. So sometimes it's up to 50 agents. Sometimes it's as little as 20. Just depends on how many units there are. But the point is, you can't go to the, I guess you'll talk about this later. I don't want to get ahead of it. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so that is exactly right. So there's no clear-cut answer, you guys. I get that's a question that I get a lot from people that I speak to about pre-construction, is like, how is this going to work? It works slightly different for every developer and for every specific launch that we have, but it's a variation of whatever I'm telling you guys here. So basically, the platinum launch is like this. The VIP launch will be similar to platinum, but more agents will have access to it.
And prices are usually increased at that time.
Yeah, exactly. So they increase the pricing and they maybe remove some of the incentives. Again, certain incentive, we'll talk about incentives more, but they may make some adjustments. They may keep it very similar. And then finally, you get to this last phase, which is the public access. At this point where you can walk in to the sales center yourself and purchase a unit from the representative at the sales center. And at that point, you're getting into what we call retail pricing of the units. Okay, so it definitely pays to be in these first releases. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So after the sales stage, we're going into the construction phase, right? So they're going to be digging the earth, build the structure, and all of the stuff there. Finally, we're going to the occupancy phase when people can start moving in. And the last phase of that is registration, at which point the developer, so just so you guys know, the developer will get this blanket mortgage for the entire for the entire project, and they are carrying the cost of paying for all of that until the building is finished and they actually have registered a condo corp. Condo corp meaning condo corporation. Once this registration occurs, this blanket mortgage gets spread out to every individual owner, and now you have your own mortgage that actually starts kicking in at that time. So let's move on. Here are the types of incentives that we get in the platinum and VIP allocations. So we'll get discounted pricing. So you will see the prices that you see in the allocations that are platinum and VIP allocations will be $10,000 to $20,000 cheaper than the consecutive launches typically. Free or discounted right to assign the unit. If you guys don't know what assignments are, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but basically in essence, what it is just selling before the building registers, which means you never have to get a mortgage.
Emila,
yeah.
With the discounted pricing, so right now we've actually seen more than that. So the platinum and VIP phase, usually they'll have like a $10,000 to $20,000 discount built into it. Even sometimes the VIP phase doesn't. But now we've seen the project called Linea at St. Clair and Wharton. Their second release was $70,000 to $80,000 more in some cases. Like for example, if you, and this happens all the time, somebody will sign up for a unit, decide that they don't want it anymore, back out of the deal. The developer will put that same unit back out there at 70 to 80 grand more, and somebody will buy it right away.
Yeah,
it's not just 10 to 20 grand anymore.
Yeah, and I have personal experience with that as well. Bought a unit through Ara's VIP allocation, his G unit connections in real estate world, but it was priced obviously higher than resale at the time. And now the exact same layout is being sold for $65,000 more by the developer. So you get a built-in premium into your unit or built-in price gains if you're buying in the earlier allocations. So I put in the assignments section here twice because sometimes the developers will not even allow you to assign at all. Rare, but it does happen. So you either are going to get discounted right to assign or the right to assign at all, and the right to lease during occupancy. Again, occupancy phase, we'll talk more about it, but it's not, you don't own the property technically until the building registers. So there's a few hoops that you'd need to jump through in order to be able to sell before registration or lease it out to somebody else. And capped levies. If you guys don't know what levies are basically taxes that the municipality will impose on the developer in order to develop the land around this building to accommodate for the influx of new people coming into the area. So let's say you're building a tall tower that's going to bring in 500 units in it. That's potentially 1,000 people moving into the building and into the area. Well, the city needs to account for that and say, hey, like we need a park here, we need a school, we need to accommodate for roads, for parking, etc. And that's an expense that they are going to push or put onto the developer, which in turn the developer puts onto the buyers, but they cap the amount in these releases. Okay, next. Pros and cons of pre-construction. So with the pros, you've got no need for a mortgage, which is a huge one for a lot of people. This is why a lot of people go for pre-construction, and also a big reason why pre-construction sells out really quickly, especially if you're somebody that's buying a second property. It might be a little bit tougher to get a mortgage. You buying yourself that time to figure it out. Incremental payments. Again, somebody who's buying their second property, if you're buying a resale condo or house, you need to have 20% down payment, no questions asked. So in pre-construction, you're still putting down that 20%, but you're putting it down in small increments over time, which makes it a lot more accessible for you to own property, where otherwise you wouldn't have been able to do that. For investors, you have no headaches with tenants during this time while your property is growing in value. You're just putting down these down payments, no mortgage, no tenants to deal with. So again, you're delaying that for yourself until later if you want to rent it out. Buying time. Yes, so you're buying yourself time to improve your qualifications in case you're not able to qualify for a mortgage. This is actually something that is typical for somebody who is self-employed, for example. Let's say you're not claiming or you're expensing a lot of a lot of your income, which brings down your notice of assessment. And if you don't know about the qualifications with a mortgage, you, as a self-employed individual or commissioned individual, you need to show 2 years of notice of assessment in order to qualify for a mortgage. And it just allows you to basically do that properly while you're paying the deposits, because you don't need to get a mortgage until the registration. You don't need to maintain the property in the beginning because everything is new and on warranty. So a bunch of appliances will have either a 1-year or 2-year warranty, which is great. And obviously none of that stuff breaks right at the beginning, which is fantastic. You can choose your own finishes. Typically developers will have anywhere between like 3 to 5 options for different colors and types of materials that you can choose inside your unit. Of course, you're getting the latest construction technology. And in this market that we're in today, that's where I started. You're not participating in bidding wars of sorts. The price is what it is. Although there is a big competition also in pre-construction, but
I was going to say you're facing a different type of bidding war. Sure. You are, because obviously, like just as an example, we submitted a serious number of unit requests in this recent project, and obviously we didn't fill every single one. So you're not competing against other people and driving the price up, but there are dozens of people going after the same unit, and our job is to fight with the developer to get that for you so you don't give it to somebody else. That's really, we're doing the competing. You're not doing the competing.
That's right. That's right. And you know what, guys, this is something that happens really behind the scenes. And I know that people who are buying are not privy to this information. They don't necessarily see this type of stuff, but you'll have Mattamy actually put out this statement. People were complaining about how they were not allocating properties on, to people in a fair manner. But they were saying, we did a community recently of 100 houses, detached houses, and we had 5,000 applications in the first 2 minutes of opening the sales portal, which is insane. So you understand the type of proportion of demand versus the supply that we have. And it's like that in pre-construction condos as well. So everybody wants to get the discounts, everybody's applying. So there's a specific process to get in. Cons of pre-construction. So you don't start paying down your mortgage again until the building registers. Typically that is anywhere between like 4 and 5 years down the road for condos, could be 2 to 3 years down the road for townhouses and houses. So that's the equity building that you're kind of missing out on with the pre-construction. You just have your deposits that you're putting down. Because there is a 15 to 30% price premium right now on pre-construction as opposed to the resale, so existing property counterparts. So that's one of the myths that we're gonna bust today, and that is that pre-construction is cheaper. It is not. It's more expensive in all cases, and it's been that way for at least 10 years now, you guys. Because of the price premiums that are built into buying pre-construction, there's a period of time that you need to wait until the market catches up to what you paid, and then you start building that equity and growing in value, right? So the developers will add that. So let's say today resale value for a specific neighborhood is $1,000 per square foot. You'll be buying somewhere maybe at $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 per square foot, depending on where you are. So obviously the market needs to catch up to you until you start growing in that value. Next, we have another thing here is the project may get canceled or the developer. Hi, who's saying hi to me?
Oh, sorry, that was Ava.
Oh, Ava. Hi, Ava. So cute. So guys, it's very rare that it happens. It has happened in the past. So the project may get canceled, the developer may file for bankruptcy. So it's one of the cons as well. You are buying sight unseen based on a floor plan. Floor plans are allowed. So developers are allowed to alter the floor plans and things like amenities and stuff like that. And of course, there's no history of management. Whereas in a resale, let's say condo we're looking in, we can look at how the maintenance fees have been growing, what the main property management company has been doing in the past to give us an indication of what's going to be happening in the future. That's not the case, obviously, with pre-construction. But when you're working with a reputable developer, all of that is mitigated. And we come to assignments. Assignment is the reason it's called an assignment, guys, is because you're assigning your, I remember in the beginning, I said that buying pre-construction, you're buying the right to purchase a property when it's built. So in this case, what you're doing is you're assigning that right to somebody else. Because you don't own that specific property until the developer completely finishes construction and registers it, you need to involve the developer and their lawyer in anything that you do with the property because it's not technically yours. So a couple of things with assignments. Number one is you want to absolutely let your realtor know that that's your intention, because there are some projects that will not allow assignments and there are certain caveats. So for example, the developer may not allow people to assign properties until they're about 90% sold out because they don't want to compete with other people who have bought their project in selling the exact same project in case you're selling it for less and so on and so forth. So there might be certain restrictions around that, which you can find in the agreement, and your lawyer and your realtor will help you with that. So definitely disclose that to make sure that your realtor is aware so that there is no issues down the road. Now we've got the reputable builders over here. So we just put a list out here. I can share this with you guys that we think.
And Mila, Nadine had a question in the chat.
Nadine had a question.
I don't know, I thought I typed in my answer, but I don't think it went through. She asked statistically how many projects get canceled. And I was going to say, like, there's so few that it's not even worth really talking about. You know, like you can't really control this stuff. Like the biggest developer that went under was called Crestford. They went under last year because of some internal problems. And they had a whole bunch of projects that were just bought by another developer and relaunched. But you can't really control these things. So whether you're a big developer, small developer, cancellations have happened across the board, but like so few that like it's not even a real consideration. All you can do is just talk about, you know, work with the best, most reputable developers, and 99.9% of the time you're good.
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say also. When you're dealing with a reputable developer, you guys, there's a lot less chances for anything like that to happen because they have significant experience and they have the funds to make sure they're going to see the project through, right? The cancellations happen because developers run out of money because there's certain unforeseen things that happen. Whereas with developers that have a track record of doing successful buildings, that doesn't happen. Okay, so which is why we've created this list over here of developers that we have trust in and that we've seen in the past.
There's a couple that I would add to this list too. I would definitely add Lifetime Developments and Liberty Developments, even Lantera, who are building 31 Parliament. So this is not like a complete list, but it's definitely a good list.
Yeah, to be honest, guys, I was putting it off the top of my head, just like all the developers that I know that are really good. So as Ara said, this is not an extensive complete list, but there are definitely.
Madame is a great developer. Somebody just asked in the chat there.
Madame is an excellent developer. Yeah.
And I just actually I recently discovered that Madame is named after the developer's son and daughter, Matt and Amy Madame.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go.
For the longest time, they only did like detached houses and townhouses and stuff, and now they started doing condos, I believe, as well.
Condo communities, for sure. And like during COVID, there were some cancellations that happened only because like it increased. So you heard about it more during COVID, because like imagine you launched a project at a certain price, and all of a sudden the price for construction and everything just like doubled. Your project wasn't viable anymore. So it just wasn't it wasn't like a normal, typical thing. So you've heard about it a lot recently because COVID really screwed up a lot of developments. Another option the developer has, which I'm sure you've heard of, is they'll launch a project, they'll sell a project, some crazy things happen, so things change. And then they have to either say, okay, we got to cancel this project, or each of you have to pay an extra $100,000 to stay into the project. Usually it's very important to put your emotion and your ego aside and really consider what market value is and what that extra $100,000 does. And usually it's better to just pay it to stay in it because it's probably worth more on the market. So, you know, don't think that projects are canceling all the time because you've heard about it happening a lot recently. COVID caused a lot of that because of increased costs. But now those increased costs are built into the pro formas of all of these projects. So Mila's laughing because we have an inside joke with that word pro forma, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so quickly, I'm going to answer some questions here about developers just while
Yes,
they're
please
there, if
do.
you don't mind.
Yes.
So Camross Felcorp, they're the ones that are building a really great project that we're going to be launching on February the 3rd called the Frederick in Leaside. They also did Upper East Village, which sold very, very, very well. I love that developer. They're going to launch the Frederick at a pretty expensive price, so we'll see how that comes out. But Camross is great. I don't have much experience with Lash Group, so I can't really speak to Lash Group. I know I've heard of them. Stafford Homes, awesome. They're doing that project called Linea on Warden right now. I'm a huge fan of Stafford Homes. We have a great relationship with Stafford Homes. And there's actually a couple of awesome floor plans floating around from initial buyers who backed out of that project. So ask Mila and she'll send you those.
Yeah, we just saw some really awesome floor plans from India that came
The
out.
one with the terrace ones, so really nice.
Yeah.
But Stafford is actually one of the most underrated developers in the entire city.
There you go, you guys. This is why Ara is here, to tell us all the juicy deets. And Andrew, yes, guys, the presentation is going to be available. You can watch it on. I'm saving it on YouTube, so the replay will be available. Is it possible for an appeal to occur on a project after pre-construction sales have been made? That's a question for Ara.
A what? An appeal?
An appeal.
Meaning, if the project's not approved, then it just doesn't happen. It doesn't get approved. Is that what you mean? Appeal?
Nikita, what do you mean?
Like the community, the people in the neighborhood appeal like an approval or something like that, and it gets retracted.
Yeah, appeal by a city or community.
Usually, if they're at a level where a project is, well, actually, we're kind of going through this right now with the project on Kingston Road, but normally, developer won't sell anything until they've at least come close to getting what's called an SPA, a site plan approval. So believe it or not, the majority of projects that are sold without the full approvals in place. That's why they don't launch the top like 3 or 4 floors, because they don't know if they're going to get them yet. So those will be released later. So it's very rare that they'll sell and then the project won't get approved. What will happen, like what's happening right now with the project we're working on, is there was an agreement in place with one of the neighbors to allow like the crane to swing over their building while they build on this particular site. But that owner pulled their agreement. They didn't want to follow through with that agreement. So that's delaying the project, but you'll never have somebody sell and then not get approval. You might sell and then not get approval for like a few floors. So if you bought on floor 30 thinking there's going to be 4 floors above you, you might end up as a penthouse, but they won't sell those units that are not yet approved or in question anyway. So the risk is, the short answer to your question, Nikita, is the risk of that happening is slim.
There you go. And I know Nikita is probably going through something like that along Kingston Road, because that's where he lives. Everybody find Nikita's house. All right, hold on a second. I feel like I missed a few slides in here. Yeah, I did miss a bunch of slides. How did that happen? Okay, so how did we jump all of this? So we went to pros and cons, we went to cons, and then we just jumped a whole bunch of slides. So notables, you guys. Something to keep in mind, delays are inevitable. With pre-construction projects, there are, I can say almost always delays, and that is normal. And that is actually why there are several, in the agreement, you will see that the developer is allowed to push back the occupancy date something like 2 or 3 times. Now, the reason they do that is because it's much easier for them to delay the date than to actually make it earlier. Okay, and there's always unforeseen things, right? Because you're projecting into the future. Things like COVID may happen when no supplies were available. People were waiting for like windows and toilets to build a pre-construction condo, and it wasn't available. Like they just didn't have it to finish the units. Material changes. Okay, so the marketing material that you see is the perfect case scenario. In some instances, sometimes things may change. Again, with big developers, it typically doesn't. It's the smaller developers that might make some alterations. Sometimes they can add a column into your unit, or sometimes they can even change the amenities.
But
Again,
if they add a column though, adding a column is a serious material change that would be reason for you to be allowed to back away from the deal.
I wonder if
so they can't really alter your living space that much.
Up to 3%, right?
Yeah. So if you buy a 1,000 square foot condo, that condo can be 30 square feet smaller or 30 square feet bigger. without you being able to back out of the deal. Anything more drastic than that, then you can decide that if you want to stay in the deal or not.
Yeah, which, guys, as we're going through this, I hope this is giving you a good perspective on how dramatized a lot of these articles that you see online are, and in the newspapers about pre-construction and deals falling through and developers changing their mind and changing all these things. It's really not as dramatic and bad as people make it out to be, but it's the job of the media to make clickbait material.
It's just not as widespread as sometimes they make it seem. That's all. Like these things, like shitty things happen to good people sometimes, and those get reported often, but it's not like a common enough occurrence for you to be like always thinking about that as like a potential problem that could happen.
Exactly. All right. So now to the fun part, the deposit structure. So just to give you a perspective, with existing houses and condos, you may put a deposit as there's a way for you to put a minimum deposit. You can go in as little as 5% down, depending on the purchase price, of course, of the property and whether or not you already own. With pre-construction, and if you're buying a second or third or fourth property, you need to have the 20% down. Now, in a resale type of a scenario, that 20% down would be the amount that you need upfront right away, right now. In pre-construction, like I was saying before, it's incremental. So here's an example of a typical deposit structure. You'll be putting $5,000 with the offer. Then they will have like the signing day where you sign the document. You'll have balance to the first 5% in 30 days of signing. And then it's typically 5% increments, and it would be done in 90 days, 180 days, and usually or sometimes 5% at occupancy, but not always. Sometimes it's done in a shorter period of time.
The best part about what am I on? Sorry,
No,
I didn't even mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. You froze. I thought you were done, but you were still talking.
No, done.
I was going to say that a lot of developers during COVID extended their deposit structures. So like you're doing 15% over like 2 years, which was great. But since, the sales have been heating up, they stopped doing that. But Metro Park, which is a development at Don Mills, Eglinton, that we're helping launch on February the 8th, they're actually one of the few developers that are going to be offering an extended deposit structure, which is pretty cool because it's going to be like 90 days, 180 days. It's not that much time to come up with that kind of money. Metro Park, we don't know what they're going to do. And you're always going to have to come up with 30 days, 5% in 30 days. That never changes. But with Metro Park, it might be like 30 days, then 210 days, then 500 and something days. So you'll have like up to 2 years to pay the deposits in that particular development. So that's pretty nice to see. It
allows you to do so. My pre-construction that I bought in Corktown, I'm paying 5% a year pretty much, which is super easy. And
it was the first launch of COVID.
Yeah, it was amazing. Realizing
it was the first COVID launch. It was the scary one. That's when the heavy hitters bought. That everybody else was scared.
Yeah. But then also the good condos in the Distillery District, same thing. It was like 5% at signing, and then 5% 4 months later. So instead of 4 months later, the next one was like 6 months or something later, and the next one was a year later, and then occupancy.
So those things aren't going to be happening again. So if anybody here is listening, wanting that kind of crazy extended deposit structure, you're going to have another round of COVID for that to happen. It's probably not going to happen. So
just run into Metro Park. Metro Park is going to be one of the last ones. I was just talking to somebody about that and like what the pricing is going to look like and stuff like that. Like I'm
scared to see what the pricing is going to look like. I don't know. Hopefully they're good to us. But it's an area that's new to condo development, so hopefully they'll ease in to the pricing. We'll see.
I mean, they're saying in the 500s for 475 is the smallest unit. So we're
that's
looking
right.
At a max of 1,300, which is like still.
Well, 1,300. I don't think it's going to start at 1,300. I think that's a pretty big number for that area right now. I suspect there's going to be some units that are like, up to 1,100 a foot, and then some nicer ones that are a little bit more.
And guys, to give you a perspective, that is amazing because we're seeing like $1,800 per square foot, $2,000 per square foot, and that's where Toronto is heading into. So when we see 11 and 12 and 13, it's like, this is good. I paid $1,326.
That's why Viewpoint. That's why Viewpoint was so popular.
Oh yeah. All right. So deposit structure we want. Ontario and warranty. So all new construction is covered by tier and warranty. It's mandated. It's something that the builder will enroll into with condos 30 days before they even start construction. And tier and warranty, I put the website over here. If you guys are seriously considering pre-construction, they've got a ton of really good information on there. And they have, they split up their warranty into 3 different parts, 1, 2, and 3 year coverage for different types of things as your building kind of ages, right? So interesting to see. And they also do have a deposit protection up to $40,000 for houses and $20,000 for condos. And I know that this is going to raise the question, and the answer to it right here is in brackets. If your builder cancels the project, they have to refund you your deposit plus any interest. Okay, so.
And conveniently, the interest is usually the same amount as the administration fee to get you that money back.
That's always the case with any deposits in real estate in general, right?
Yeah.
Coincidentally.
Oh, funny. Our administration fee is also $75.
Yeah. That's hilarious. There's actually, if you guys don't know, when you're buying like existing property, there's a Schedule B that the listing brokerage will provide that actually speaks to the fact. They'll say, yeah, we're holding your deposit in a trust account with our brokerage, and we will be earning interest on it at such and such rate. You can be eligible for interest if you like, but here's our administration fee. And typically you're holding the money in there for like 30 days and you make no money on it. So nobody ever signs up for it. So
not even worth considering that thing.
Yeah, really not. Now, cooling off period. This is an interesting little part, which really makes pre-construction very different from resale, okay? In Ontario specifically, we have 10 calendar days to break the deal in pre-construction, okay? It allows you to make some changes in the agreement or back out. So typically what you do with pre-construction is you get in and take the plunge, sign the documents, and then you do your due diligence, which is a lot to stomach for a lot of people, which is also why pre-construction is not for everybody, okay? But guys, if you want to have a chance at pre-construction, you've got to stew on the fact that you're going to be required to make a decision really quickly, but then you'll have that time to go talk to your lawyer, show the agreement to the lawyer can submit changes or make any adjustments that they may or may not get approved by the developer. But you have that freedom to basically get out of the deal if things don't pan out for you. But this is actually a big reason why people jump on it so quickly, because they just want to reserve a spot and then deal with all the other stuff later. Ara's raising their hand.
I only do it, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I'm only talking about this because I don't I don't want to focus too much on cooling off period with people. We don't focus on that too much with our buyers, because I don't want you entering the transaction knowing that there's a chance you're going to back out, even if, you know, the deal is like a regular common deal that most people are signing. So no, right now, 5 minutes. Just go on, please. So we don't want you to enter into the deal in the first place unless you're at least 95 to 100% sure you'd like to follow through on a purchase here. You know, so we're going to talk about what your costs are going to be. We're going to talk about all the things that you'll research during that 10-day. So, you know, we don't want you just to jump on a deal just to lock it up, and then you're going to walk away from it over some stupid like $500 charge you're not happy with later. You have to understand that pre-construction is a game of, there's like a whole bunch of little fees. There's this, you know, there's a fee for cashing checks. There's a fee for lawyer review. There's a fee for your extra closing costs. You have all these things. We're going to talk about those things before. And, you know, the most frustrating thing is seeing people back out of deals because their ego can't handle paying an extra $500 fee for something that, you know, they're going to, you know, it's like walking over $1 to save a dime kind of situation where you're throwing away a beautiful investment over a silly little fee that you know was going to come anyway. So, you know, we don't like to just get people into these deals and then start to talk about all the stuff after. We talk about a lot of it before, but then you have that 10 days to get out if something happens. But it's funny how many crazy, traumatic, life-changing events happen during those 10 days to people. It's like, oh, my entire family just, you know, something. Or anyway, we do a lot of this work before, So you don't have to stress out too much during this time.
Yeah, this is why this webinar is actually here, to actually go over these things, so you have a good idea of what your costs and all of these things are going to be, and know what your expectations are before you jump in, so that you know what you're getting yourself into. All right, now we're into the 2 closing days part. So there's 2 important dates to know with pre-construction. There's your occupancy, and then there's your final closing. So if we're talking about a condominium, the developer will build from the bottom up. They'll build the units, and then once they finish all the units, they're going to do the common areas, like the amenities and things like that. And once your unit is built, whether you move in or not, there's something called occupancy fee that you have to already start paying until they register. Okay, this is a way for that the developers do it and have done it forever. And so this occupancy period can be anywhere between a few months all the way to, like, we've seen even 2 years. I don't know how long has Baseball Place been in occupancy? Do you remember?
I don't want to talk about it.
I love that. They're great.
It's coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, there you go. So 2 years is the
longest. That's not a normal situation. Typically, you will register. So from occupancy to actually being able to own the place, like let's say 4 months if you're on a lower floor, because they register first, and up to say a year in the worst case scenario, usually. Like when I bought my place prior to the place I'm in now, we did occupancy in February, and I closed in July. So
you're like 10th floor out of 12, right? Or what was it?
Yeah, 10th floor. This was a smaller building. The bigger the building, the longer it's going to be. They closed them in chunks. So if you're on lower floors, you're going to have a longer occupancy period than if you're on a higher floor. You're going to move in because they move you in before the top of the building is done in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another thing to understand, you guys. Like you're going to be walking in, the building might not be complete. The elevator might be boxed up for a while still. And that's just all part of the process. But these occupancy fees, some people also call them ghost rent. I actually have a breakdown of how that's calculated in the next slide, and it's typically cheaper than what rent would be. So it's actually not a bad deal.
Cheaper usually.
Yeah.
Andrew has a question about, is there any recourse if interim occupancy goes beyond 2 years? Unfortunately, no. The only recourse you have is if occupancy gets delayed beyond their outside occupancy date, then you have the ability to recover a $7,500 delayed occupancy fine from the developer. But no, you can't really do anything if they can't register the building after a specific time.
They write down in the agreement, there's a few important dates for you to know, and it'll actually outline that beyond this final, there's like a tentative, and then final worst case scenario.
It's called the outside occupancy date, and that's like the final one that they can't delay beyond without penalty.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's typically quite a bit far out, further than 2 years. And honestly, like, it doesn't make a difference if you have access to the unit, and let's say you're an investor, you're actually going to be cash flowing more than once it's registered. So that's a win. And if you are an end user, you're paying less than you would if you have a mortgage. Yeah, you're not paying down the mortgage, but you're still paying less than if you were to be renting while this was built. So in that sense, it's also kind of a win. So not too huge of a deal. And again, it's not something that happens often, right? There's one right now that's still in occupancy, but again, not often. Now
that was for a specific reason, because they have a giant commercial, they have a giant car dealership that had to register first. Their biggest condo unit is a giant car dealership. They had to register that first. So they completed that last year. And then they started the registration process for the residential units at the beginning of this year.
I did not know that. That's very interesting. See, Ari knows everything about everything. I love it. Final closing.
I just read too much.
Yes, you do. So guys, final closing is when the developer actually registers the building, right? Like I said, they'll form a condo corporation, and all those that big blanket mortgage disperses into a bunch of small mortgages, which would be you owning your own unit. And at this point, you have what's called a fee simple of your unit. You have the full ownership, full rights. You can sell it, rent it, do whatever you want with it, within obviously the rules of the condo corp, or if it's a house, no rules for you. And
Nikita, she's going to get into that in a second.
It's in the developer's best interest to get through to final closing as soon as possible, because they do not get paid until they register. So against, again, some popular beliefs that developers are evil and they're out to get you, that's not the case. It's actually in their interest to make it as seamless as possible. Nikita, do you start paying maintenance upon occupancy or closing? You start paying maintenance on occupancy. So this is the occupancy fee breakdown. Okay, the structure will be determined by the developer, but it's going to be a combination of these three, but not more than that. So the combination is this: mortgage, interest rate. So your mortgage portion, right? If you guys ever watched or looked at the amortization schedule, you have a portion that's your principal repayment, and then you have the other portion that's your interest part. The developer will take the interest part of that. Okay, the property tax, the developers typically, what do they take 1%, I think. So they put quite a higher number for the property tax, but still.
It's the most ridiculous high number ever.
It's 1%, right?
It's 1% of the purchase price, which is nowhere near what you end up paying, but that's what you have to pay. Then you can then when you actually close on the unit, you can get the overpayment back.
You fund back for that, exactly, whatever you
Your lawyer, that's why it's important to work with a good pre-construction lawyer that knows how to do these things.
Oh yeah, big time. That's something to know for sure. I'm in real estate, and when I bought my pre-construction, I changed like 2 or 3 lawyers before I ended up working with the right one, and learned that firsthand that you do need to have a specific lawyer for a specific transaction that you're working with, because it's a very different type of an animal, and people need to know what they're doing. And then of course the maintenance fees is the third part, you guys. Okay, so when you put those three,
that's a question too.
It's cheaper than rent. Khalid. For first-time buyers, how the HST refund works. So the HST is already rebated, right? It's a $24,000 charge, which you pay at closing, and you can claim for a refund. I think in 4 months you can request it back.
But not everybody. So that, I just want to make sure everybody understands what the HST rebate is. Do you mind if I talk about that now, or do you want to?
No, go for it right now. Go for it right now.
Okay. Sorry, I just had a sip of Coke and I have to burp. So most people don't have to worry. If you're buying pre-construction as somebody who wants to live there, this is not a conversation you need to listen to. So go do something else right now. But if you are somebody who's buying pre-construction and you're going to buy it as an investor, so you're going to buy, so let's say you buy with us right now at Metro Park next week, and you want to rent it out. When you go to close on that unit, so not on occupancy, but on final closing, when you have to engage your mortgage and all that stuff, you have to pay $24,000 to the Canada Revenue Agency. This is a HST rebate. So the price you see, let's say you paid $1 million for this place. In that $1 million price tag you see on the sales sheet, there is included 13% HST is included in that $1 million, minus $24,000 in an HST rebate. That's a credit given to you by the provincial government, by the federal government, just to help people get into the market. That credit is only designed to automatically apply to end users, people that are buying to live there. To anybody else, you have to pay that back to the CRA. And if the investor shows the CRA a 1-year lease agreement, they've provided housing for somebody, then they can get that money back. Not can, they will. They will get minus a $750 fee. So you're going to get $23,250 back within about 4 months. But on closing, there is no way around not paying that. So on top of all the other closing costs, you have to come up with another $24,000 if you're an investor, an investor. If you're living there, not to worry. If you're buying an assignment off of somebody else, doesn't matter if they were an investor or if they were an end user. On assignments, that has to be paid by whoever buys the assignment on closing, no matter what, and you get it back if you show a 1-year lease or you show them that you're living there. So it's an extra cash payment that needs to be made by everybody except for an original pre-construction purchaser who intends to live there. Is that clear? Yeah.
That is clear. There's a lot of confusion around this. Listen, again, with the rights lawyer, there's no fears around this stuff, because they explain all this to you and make sure that you are in the right boat, because there are some people who have not had to pay for it but ended up having to pay for it because they didn't do things right. So good lawyer, very, very important. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you sometimes if you You're
No, no,
frozen. You keep freezing on me, and I think you've stopped talking, so I just keep talking.
keep talking.
No, okay, no, you're not frozen. You're back. I was just saying, if you don't make that payment, the CRA will find you, and they will make you make that payment. So it's not an option, and your lawyer will tell you that.
Yep. It's just something that you have to be aware of in advance. That's all. Good question here from Kay. Can or do agents help you get appointments for new builds? Seems the appointments are gone moments after they are released, or is it really just luck at this point? I think what you're talking about
appointments.
I think what
like allocations.
No, I think what Kay's talking about is detached houses. There are some developers that don't that let's say do like detached houses in the suburbs far away. They don't co-op or they don't work with realtors, and they just basically release their sales portal, and within 2 minutes the appointments are gone. Yes, so there are some projects that you cannot get through realtors. You have to just go directly through the developer, and especially if it's something that's a detached or a semi. I don't know if Ara has some insight on that as well. I actually don't know like how that's
a lot of them cooperate. It's just there's like a handful of them that don't, but like whatever it is, whether they're working with a broker or you've got to go direct to the sales center, there's usually those cases where if they're not using they're not cooperating with brokers like us, they don't really have a special group of agents that help them sell, and they go direct to public. That's when you see people just standing in line outside for like 2 days.
Yeah,
and I don't mess with that shit. I don't know why people bother with that stuff, but it's not my jam. But if you want to go buy a home like that, go for it. But there's no way really around that. You have to just be there first in line. But the majority of these developers cooperate with agents, and they have a group of platinums and VIPs that help them sell these things. And in that case, you've got to make quick decisions right at the beginning, right at launch. You probably have to be talking to us like a week before the launch so we can get you ready. You have all the information. You can never, let me put it this way. If a project is launching tomorrow and we have not spoken, the chances of you getting a unit tomorrow are zero. We can't get you from where you are to where you need to be able to be ready to buy a unit tomorrow in one day. There's too much that we need to go over with you. So it's a fast-paced game that we have to be very prepared for, and getting appointments, to be able to jump on the appointments when they become available, you have to be prepared with money.
Yeah, which leads me kind of to another point here. People wanting to see floor plans and then making the decision. That's totally fair, but just understand that you're not going to get in at the first releases, meaning not platinum and probably also not VIP, because they are gone kind of exactly like what you were saying, Kay. They're gone within like minutes to hours, and it's just over. So you want to have your reservation sheet filled out. You want to have your bank draft ready for the developer with everything in hand. Like they'll ask for a SIN number, for driver's license. You're basically giving them everything, saying, hey, just pick me. And
you're giving it to us. You're giving it to us, and we're keeping it like in a secure place. And then we're passing it on to the developer all through a very secure portal. So it's not like all that information is just out there.
No, it definitely isn't floating around like that. Okay, so here's the closing costs information. We've got with pre-construction, you will want to budget for another 5 to 8% for closing costs. And because what Ara was saying, there are some additional costs that are involved in pre-construction. So
just to be clear though, that 5 to 8% is not like on top of a normal property. A typical property purchase has around like 3 to 5% in closing costs. A pre-construction property has like 1.5% beyond that. Mm-hmm. So it depends on what it is. So it's not like it's that much more overall.
Yeah, no, it's not more than the thing. It's just with resale 3 to 5, pre-construction probably somewhere around 5 to 8.
I would say it's usually like I haven't seen closing costs exceed like 6.5% total closing costs. But I honestly wouldn't get into this too much right now because it's very, very specific to projects. And this is what you do during the 10-day cooling off period. This is why your lawyer will take you through all this bit by bit and tell you exactly what's what. But this is a good overview anyway.
Exactly. And actually another thing too is even the lawyers, when they're giving you the overview, they will give you a larger projection than what you typically will need to pay, just to be safe so that you're budgeting for it. Okay, so just also be aware of that. So there is things like taxes, the warranty plan enrollment fee, there's utility hookups, assignment fees if you're assigning, lawyer fees, land transfer tax is a typical one, and then the HST that we talked about, that Ara was explaining about earlier. Okay, so these are kind of like what the breakdown is. Am I missing anything else in here, Ara?
There's like 500 other line items.
I would actually, maybe I would, for next time, I'll show people what the breakdown was for mine. Just
honestly, you're just going to scare people. Let the lawyers do that. They can explain it a lot better than we can.
Okay, cool. All right, so common myths that we run across. Pre-construction is cheaper than resale. It is not. There is a premium in pre-construction, and that's been the case for years and years and years, you guys. And it's not cheaper anywhere that we work with. So like anywhere in the GTA.
Not since 2008.
Oh,
that was the last time I remember a project cheaper than resale.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen. And at this point right now too, like there's, that's the premiums that we're looking at here. Another myth, I'll get a better deal buying directly from the developer. That is not the case. You actually cannot buy from the developer at the Platinum and VIP launches. So by the time it actually is public where you are able to walk in, you are paying the retail price. Ara, did you want to say something? No? Okay, it's your hand.
The one time I don't interrupt you, you want me to interrupt you.
My screen is giving a notification.
Listen, I can expand on anything 100% of the time, so I might as well do it now that you gave me the window. So, so buying directly from the developer, you can 100% do that. It's just going to be like 6 months after it launches, and usually depends on what. If your budget is on the lower end, you need to be working with a Platinum or VIP agent because none of those units are going to be available at the end of the day. After the first few rounds, the developer will hold some of those back, but they're going to come out at big increased prices by the time they go direct to public. So it's it's always going to be better to come in with a Platinum agent at the very, very beginning. If you don't have any luck getting a unit that way, don't worry. There's going to be an opportunity to get a unit again down the road if you really, really want to be in the particular development. But it might be a little bit more expensive by the time it gets there.
Yep. And actually 100% of the time that we look at like whatever the availability is for any project, it's typically like the larger, more expensive units that are left, right? In my experience. Usually
those ones are the ones that are left. But even these days, a lot of people are buying the bigger units too. So like it's just a mix of everything the developers held back. Like that unit you sold your client Ashley at the Good, that 1F floor plan that everybody wanted. Yep. That unit's 110 grand more right now.
Is it? I need to tell her it's 860 now, right? 840.
It's in the eights.
Yeah, and that's, guys, that's a 1-bedroom that is less than 500 square feet. So just in Distillery District. So that gives you an idea of what price per square footage looks like in certain parts of the city. Another
Andrew's asking a question here. Can any agent say that they're a Platinum agent? How do you know if someone is a legitimate Platinum agent? Honestly, Andrew, just text Mila what their name is and we'll tell you. I know them all. I hang out with them all. I hang out with all those guys every single week. So if you're worried about somebody, if you're working with somebody right now, text us the name and I'll tell you if they're a Platinum agent or not. That's really what I can say.
The way to know this, Andrew, is well, first of all, we know over here, Ara's got the access. He's got amazing connections through it, which is how we're getting all these Platinum launches with everybody. And even if we're not representing a specific building, Ara can get us access. So this is great connection for any one of you that's interested in pre-construction. But more than that, if the agent is not Platinum, they're not going to have access to the release. Like I get agents messaging me and signing up for ads all the time. And they're asking like, are you going to co-op? I have clients. And we don't co-op in these releases. Platinum agents, typically in my experience, they don't co-op. Ara, is that your experience?
We'll co-op with each other from time to time. Like if one of the Platinum agents has like a floor plan that none of their buyers want, they'll say, hey, all right, do you have anybody for this plan? And we'll try and sell it for them.
Yeah.
But an easy way to tell, I guess, if somebody is Platinum or not is are they showing you a unit that has been allocated to them specifically that only they can sell? Because that's how a lot of developments launch, right? So what we'll do is we'll talk. So Andrew, if you came to me, you're like, I want to buy at Metro Park. We'll talk about what you want. We'll submit your request for what you want, and then we'll be allocated a specific unit just for you. So that is if an agent is telling you they have access, but then they're sending you stuff with like another agent's name on it, or those could be some red flags. But most agents don't. It's really hard to fake, because like if you're saying you're a platinum and you're not, like there's really no way to fake it. Like you're just going to literally end up disappointed like 100% of the time, because they can't get you anything. But also Google them.
True.
See what their web presence look like. Are they talking about pre-con on their socials? Like, who are they?
I think for somebody that's an end user, it's very tough to tell whether or not a person is platinum, because there's no like database for people to look. But just for your information, we are. So that's.
Are they doing pre-construction webinars at 7 p.m. on a Thursday? Like that.
Touche. Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't need a lawyer. I had that happen with a friend of mine who was wanted to assign her unit. And I was like, did your lawyer review the documents? Like, do you know if you can even assign the unit? And she's like, we didn't hire a lawyer for the review. Here's a fun fact for you guys. In Ontario, in order to facilitate a transfer of property, you need to have a lawyer regardless. You're going to have to get a lawyer when you're closing on your pre-construction, no matter what. So you might as well pay them an additional however many bucks for them to review your agreement, to make sure that you're not signing your life away for something that doesn't work for you. And they make sure that your best interests are represented. So 100% of the time, strongly recommend working with a lawyer, because they have your best interest at heart. Okay. All right.
And like, I know your uncle is probably a really great lawyer and you love him, but like he probably doesn't know pre-construction. So you got to go with one of our recommendations. That is ideal.
Like I said.
What is the question here?
Oh, I don't know.
Certified or licensing agencies for brokers. I don't know what that means.
Well, I guess if there's any licensing agencies to have like a badge saying that you're a platinum broker. Guys, for every developer, they're going to have slightly different type of a platinum broker that they're giving that first access to. So at this time, I don't think there's any badges or anything that's like certifies us as platinum agents.
Nadine, is that what you mean? Like licensing and certifying like platinum brokers? Or you mean like, are there, I don't know. If you can clarify that, that'd be awesome. I don't have like a police badge that's like platinum broker.
There is a badge right now for like certified luxury agents. You saw that?
Those are so stupid. They're just these courses that you take at like over 2 days, and all of a sudden you're a certified this, you're a certified that.
Yeah. And that's how they get around these things. But it's impresses the public, because there's no other way for people to know. So I guess the only really way to know is I think the best way to really know whether or not your agent or the person you're working with is worth their salt is by following them and seeing what they're putting out there, right? Like what type of information do they have a blog? Are they putting out constant information? Are they up to date with the market? Are they like speaking to the public through their social channels and explaining things? And that will kind of give you a really good idea of whether or not they know what they're talking about, right? That's my 2 cents on that. Surprise closing costs. There are no surprise closing costs, you guys. You will have, there's certain things that you may not know exactly how much it's going to cost. So for example, things like, I think certain levies, right, Ara? But that's yes. That has nothing to do with the developer. It has to do with the city or the municipality. City. Exactly, because they don't tell you until that time comes, how much that's going to be. And so, but the lawyer, again, a good lawyer will give you a pretty good estimate that will give you that idea. So the developer will not.
This is what the caps are for. So here's an example of like a worst and a best case scenario when it comes to this sort of situation. So you know that you're going to have a certain number of closing costs. Your lawyer would have outlined this for you, and you would know what your closing costs are. And then there's a cap that we negotiate into the deal. Let's say $7,000 or $12,000 cap that puts all of those costs into a group and says it's not going to exceed this amount. And the most important one that's covered in that cap is the increase in development charges from the time that you bought it. Let's say the city increases their certain taxes that they have. That increase is capped within that whatever amount that we capped for you. So For example, on my condo that I closed last July, my cap was $12,500, but the actual increase was like $900. So my surprise, so to speak, closing cost, I knew was a worst case scenario of up to $12,500, but it was only $900. So usually it falls into that big range, but usually in the lower end. And your lawyer, and the reason why the surprise is a myth is that you know the worst case scenario from your lawyer. The surprise is less than the worst case scenario. So you know the big number that it could be, but the surprise is usually coming in much lower than that.
Exactly. Whoever's saying that it's a surprise, they don't understand exactly fully the process. And there are a lot of realtors out there that don't understand also the process, which is why I said in the beginning, you're going to know more than 90% of realtors out there after this.
Who's Nikita? Seems like she knows a lot about real estate. Are you a real estate agent, Nikita?
Nikita is my friend, and it's a he. And
I'm sorry.
He's on a condo board in his building.
Okay.
And so, which is why he's asking, this is the first experience for him. So the initial maintenance fees are, they're
in the budget. You have it in the condo documents that you get. It's called the disclosure statement. It comes in a giant thick folder, usually on a USB key, and used to be in paper back in the day. That's part of what your lawyer reviews at the very beginning. It has the proposed budget for the entire building. The per each unit's maintenance fee is listed in this document. The parking maintenance fees, the locker maintenance fees are all done. There's no reserve fund study specifically because there's no building to study. The reserve fund study is due within 6 months of registration. That's required by the city of Toronto. So there's no engineering report or anything like that done. It's all done based on the construction drawings and the expectation of the lifespan of the equipment that's going into the building. And when a building is registered, part of your closing costs is a double or triple maintenance fee contribution from each unit owner. That's what they didn't used to do back in the day. Back in the day, they would just take one maintenance fee, and then year one, your maintenance fee would go up like 150% to year two. Now, the year one maintenance fee is a very reasonable amount that only goes up with inflation for the next year. Because you've made a triple contribution to the reserve fund, you have a very well funded reserve on day one, instead of having to catch up and increase year one to year two. So they used to have those teaser maintenance fees that everybody's like, oh, everybody knows the maintenance fees go up from year one to year two so much. That's not the case anymore. So there is a very healthy reserve fund built in, but there's always surprises. You never know. But the beautiful thing, like Mila already said, there are a lot of warranties that cover a lot of the surprises at the very beginning.
Exactly. So they estimated basically based on their prior experience, right? They're hiring professionals to do that. Final myth that we hear a lot, there's final, I guess, last but not least, definitely, is that developers don't care. That is not true. Their reputation is at stake. Developers definitely care because your reviews and all of that stuff matters to them. So you guys, that's just simply not the case. So we talked about assignment.
They act like they care a lot anyway. Like, we kind of think that they care.
They do care. They do care because
developers are good talkers. They're very good talkers. Everything that developers are doing is the best. This building that I'm making is like game changing. It's going to define the whole new industry. It's like they all say the same shit, but at the same, like they at the end of the day, they do care, but they love to grandstand and say that everything they're doing is like changing the world.
But ultimately, these people are in this game for the long haul. So if they're putting out garbage out there, people are not eventually, like, people are not stupid, right? The public is not stupid. And people are very quick to write bad reviews about anybody. So you'll be able to know by a simple Google search, which brings us to our Q&A. If anybody has any questions left after all this talk, let's see what we got here. Do buyers get units for affordable housing units that a developer has to provide? With the affordable units, and actually, tell me if I'm wrong with that. This affordable,
they're not for sale.
Well, yeah, but also they are the buildings that are going to start implementing affordable housing. This is starting from people who are putting applications in right now, which means they're not actually going to be starting to build until like 4 years from now.
4 years, but 4 to 7 years from now. But also, it's also a phased in situation where they're going to start with like 1 to 3% of the building has to be affordable housing. It's going to phase in to up to 20%, which is a lot. But That's actually not the right number. I'm having a blank right now. But
It was-
regardless, these units are not usually for sale. These are market rate rentals, or not market rate, geared to income rentals or some sort of other subsidized housing. They could be rent to own situations, but that's a separate, usually a floor. And sometimes they have separate entrances. That actually caused a bit of a problem with some buildings in New York who wanted to build a building with affordable housing, but they didn't want to have all the people going through the same entrance. So they had like the affordable housing entrance, and like the other entrance is pretty, treating humans that way is not really the best.
Discrimination, yes.
So those units are allocated separately. They aren't involved in any of the sales process, and they have to be in a specific place. You'll find them on the lower floors usually. But I don't know enough detail about them yet because it's just such a new program that's coming out. They are only for buildings that have 100 units or more. So you're going to find a lot of developers looking for infill sites to build 99 or less units these days. Not these days, but in the coming years. So the boutique building is going to become a huge, huge trend. Main Street, Queen Street, King Street, Corktown, like Kingston Road, all those little roads are going to start developing like 6 to 8 story condos like mad, especially along the Danforth. And those buildings won't have any of the affordable housing built into it. But honestly, I lived in a community that was surrounded by all kinds of different types of housing. And to be honest, it really creates a really great neighborhood in a lot of cases. So I find a lot of people's concern about affordable housing is just misguided fear. They think they're just going to be surrounded by like criminal activity and stuff. But like when you really think about what you're saying, people that need affordable housing aren't fucking criminals. Like, these are humans that have different situations than you do. And I would encourage you to not shy away from a development because it incorporates any sort of affordable housing, because everybody needs a chance, and if you can be part of that chance for somebody, then I'm all in.
Question from Andrew. You said that you thought the Frederick may be expensive. What price per square foot would you have expected for that area, considering the LRT is going to be there?
Oh, Andrew sounds like he's ready to buy some pre-construction. That's what I'm thinking. But the Frederick, knowing the LRT, listen, I just know what Upper East Village right next door was selling for. And this is going to be a big jump. Laird and Eglinton, not the most it's walkable and that there's everything there. It's going to come out at over $1,400 a foot, which, it's at Bayview and Eglinton. Leaside Common was charging a little bit more than that, and they still have units left. I actually think Leaside Common's a pretty good buy right now, considering it's a boutique building and it's way better located than the Frederick. It's more expensive price per square foot. But if I had a choice to buy if I wanted to buy on Leaside and I'm looking at the Frederick and I'm looking at Leaside Common, I'm buying Leaside Common. We're going to run ads for the Frederick. We're going to sell the Frederick. But whenever we talk to people that contact us about the Frederick, we're going to probably see if we can get them into a unit at Leaside Common. It's more expensive and it's somewhat flying under the radar for some reason. But that neighborhood is going to be a $2,000 a square foot neighborhood in the next 5 to 7 years. I don't have any doubts about that. I just didn't expect units to launch to go from $1,000 and $1,100 a foot at Upper East Village to immediately come out at $1,400, $1,500 a foot like the Frederick's going to. I think a lot of people are going to have some sticker shock there.
Oh yeah, what's that increase translate to?
35%.
Well,
That's a big increase.
yeah.
So anyway, I think it's a good building. I love the developer. I love the location. I grew up in that area, so I know it very, very well. I know you've got access to all kinds of green space around there. You've got you've got transit right there. Like the Frederick is sick. It's a great location. But if I'd pay a little bit more for Leaside Common.
There you go. Okay. We're gonna keep it open for a couple more questions. Well,
let's see if we can get Andrew to tell us which agent he's working with that he wants to know if he's platinum or not, or she's platinum or not.
it was Kay who was it Kay who was asking about platinum agent or not? Any opinion?
I don't know who Podium is Development is. I don't know who Podium is.
I guess it's a developer that we don't know about. So that tells
That's what I said. I don't know.
That tells you.
Unless I should know them.
It was Andrew that was saying, can any agent say that they're platinum? Andrew, who are you working with? Tell us right now.
Andrew's keeping it a secret. It's okay. We'll get it out of him eventually.
We will. All right. Oh,
I'm
by
going
the
to
way,
Google podium developments now.
while you're Googling, I have a question for you. Did the good condos approve those two upper floors, the 32nd and 33rd?
Not yet, no.
Yeah,
Not
eh?
yet.
Well, still waiting for approval. So this is what Ara was talking about, you guys, that they don't sell. Like I had a client who was asking for a penthouse in there, and they were proposing or saying that they were going to sell up to 32 floors, but those last two floors, 34 floors, and the last two floors weren't approved yet, so they weren't releasing the units for that. So my penthouse guy is still waiting for something to happen.
Oh, wow. How come I don't know podium developments? They're doing 315 Spadina, 80 Dale Avenue. Wow. Maybe
So
I should get to know podium developments.
Nikita, to your point, podium developments, probably good.
I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But mindful planning and delivery with a keen focus on the user experience since 2004. Well, they didn't really make their way to me. That's the problem. I don't like this. Oh, wait a minute. This is Kingston.
Guys, whoever's still in the chat while Ara is researching podium developments, message in the chat what developments you have been exposed to or you have been looking at, and we can see if we can tell you if they're good or shit. No pressure.
I mean, you're only really as good as your last development. So
True. Well, write down what you guys are, what got you interested in pre-construction, so we can have a little more conversation here. But if not,
my hand's still up. My hand is still up.
yeah, your hand's been up this entire time. That's why I keep asking.
Oh.
You have
I don't know. I haven't been able to see myself until now. I didn't know. I was looking at the presentation. 908 St. Clair. That unit, I love that building so much. It's there. It's mostly sold though. There's just, I'll tell you exactly what's available right now.
Yeah, we were talking. Didn't we try to get somebody a unit in there? Were we able to?
Well, their price expectations were unreasonable, so it did not happen.
What are they selling?
Realtor 908. So we got a 2-bedroom available there right now, 950,000 for
Nikita, what's the
square
Gilbert
footage?
location? Is that a location, or what is that?
Guildwood is location, yeah, it's along
Okay.
Kingston Road.
Also Guildwood Go Station, don't know the developer, still in the thing. 28 Eastern, yeah, we know that development as well.
Hold on, let's close the loop on this 908 Spadina situation right here, because I'm a huge fan of that development. We just didn't promote it because we didn't have enough time for this year. All right, here we go. Andrew, if you have any specific questions about that development, let me know. I do know that it's a little bit pricier than what people expected, but I just love the location so much, and I love the scale of the whole building. I think it's going to do very, very well. The same marketing team that's selling 908 St. Clair is doing Leaside Common, and they also did that One King, that beautiful, not One King, sorry, the King Toronto, that beautiful building in King West neighborhood. But overall, great project. It's past the launch right now. They're doing some signings tomorrow. There's maybe 1 or 2 units floating around. If you're interested, you can drop Mila your email and she'll send you what she can for that project.
You can share your screen, by the way. I made it if you want to share your screen to show.
I can't, it's a private chat. I can't share the screen. These are those platinum guys that I'm telling you about, like that if they have something to share, that's where they're sharing it. I just can't show you that. Guildwood Go Station, don't know the developer. It was still in super early approval. Yeah, that development is nowhere near being able to sell anything right now. But to talk about Guildwood Go really specifically, like, Mila and I and our whole company has been really, we've been talking to our clients about Kingston Road, top to bottom. That's where my money is being invested. That's where a lot of smart money is investing right now. Kingston Road from the east end of the beach all the way through to Pickering. It's like where Corktown was like maybe 10 years ago. It's like where Gerrard was when Queen was popping off like 7 to 10 years ago. Kingston Road is where it's at. And anywhere along, anywhere, because people are realizing that the Go is actually a viable transit option, where most people didn't really consider the Go a viable transit option. It's very, very convenient, way better than the TTC. I live along the Go now. I moved up East Kingston Road myself. What would be some examples of B C lenders? I mean, C lenders, there are no C lenders. It's either B or it's a private money. So like a B lender would be like a Home Trust or a First National or a Equitable. one of those banks. You're getting a B lenders at 2.5% to 3% mortgages right now. Private money, we got a guy right now that will do a private mortgage at 4.5%, but it has a 2.5% fee. So the big difference between B lenders, A lenders are like the big banks that you all know of. B lenders are the ones that take on a little bit more risk, but they have fees involved with their mortgages. But private lenders, you're going to get like a $500,000 mortgage at whatever percent, but you're going to pay a 2.5% fee up front for that. So anybody can get money, you just have to pay for it. And what do you got here? 28 Eastern, I bought there, sold a lot of units there. They just started digging the hole finally. I just drove past it today. I'm a huge fan of 28 Eastern. Altera is probably one of my favorite developers. They partnered with Greywood to do Wonder Condos, which is my all-time favorite development. So huge fan of 28 Eastern. If whoever this guest is bought there, then you will do very, very, very well there. That was one of the first COVID launches, and around $1,000 a foot. So you've made at least $300 a foot on that already.
Damn.
Any pre-con detached homes? Yeah, sure. But minimum $1.5 million all the way to Kitchener. Can you get a B lender for your pre-con mortgage? No. To get your pre-con mortgage letter, you have to, most developers will ask for a bank approval letter from an A lender. Viewpoint in Pickering is working with RBC as an example. So you have to get a lender letter. It can be a letter from a mortgage broker referencing an A lender. But we have people that can arrange these letters for you and give you great approvals and kind of speed you through their process. They're fully legitimate approvals. But not all the time. You can't always use a B lender for a pre-con mortgage approval letter. But you can use it for your mortgage at the end of the day if that's the only mortgage you can get when you go to close on it. But you can't give that as the letter during the 10-day period.
When you're registering, you can do whatever you want as long as you get a mortgage to pay for it. But with the developers, they're actually their lender, right, who requires specific type of letters, and they're going to be the ones that want to be pretty anal sometimes about how they want it done. So
the developer's lender is the one who's dictating these rules. So they're the ones that are saying one approval is from so and so. But the developers that require A lender approvals have usually partnered with an A lender to make that process as easy as possible for you. If they can't get you a letter that you need, you probably shouldn't be buying anything because your finances are probably not great. Sorry to say.
All right, we're going to start wrapping it up. Thank you guys for showing up and thank you for amazing questions. I'm going to send everybody that attended and didn't attend an email with the replay video and then some more information on pre-construction. You guys have our contact info, thespringteam.ca. You can reach out to us through there with any questions or anything else that you need or want to ask.
Just reach out straight to Mila at thespringteam.ca. She's your girl. Mila actually is going through a bit of a growth phase in our company. She's going to be doing all the pre-con for our company sooner than later. Hey. So very, very proud of all your work with pre-construction.
You guys know who to make friends with? It's me.
That's right.
All right.
The changing of the guard.
That's it. All right. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys. Thank you, Ara, for all your insight. I always learn a bunch every time you join these. So, and I'm sure everybody else learned a lot too. So now you guys can go and tell everybody that you know more than majority of the people out there about pre-construction.
You guys are all pretty much platinum agents now. You know what you're talking about more than half of the agents out there.
Telling you that's for sure the case because agents ask me about the process all the time. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to go get some tea and we'll talk soon, hopefully. Bye.
Bye, Mila. Thank you.